Yeah, it's recordings. Great. So yeah, it's been almost a year of living in Atlanta and having moved in the midst of a pandemic, this sense of like, oh, we're somewhere else, but our small little COVID life, we just sort of uprooted it and placed it somewhere else. And I think that for me, the like return of this season of the year of the month of Elul has been a sense of like, oh wow, it really has been a full cycle through the year. And I don't know if y'all caught the sight of the moon last night, but it is really like, oh, we are halfway through this month of Elul, and the light from the moon was so bright. We have a skylight, and it was like I woke up at one point in the night, and it was like I was on Broadway. I felt like a spotlight coming in on me, and I think the question that I'm asking and that I hope we'll get to ask is like, what are we looking to see of ourselves in the light of the Elul moon and the light of this month of self-reflection and introspection? I'll start with a little story from when Levi, my eldest, was 1 or 2, maybe he was 2 years old, and he was holding an ice cube in his hand. And I said to him, do you know what ice turns into? And he kind of looked at it for a second, and he had that like deep thought look that you can sometimes see across a toddler's face. And then his eyes lit up, and he was like, I got it. I know what it is. It turns into a butterfly. And I had this moment of like, wait, a butterfly? Like what? But then all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, oh, that is his one paradigm of transformation, is caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly. And so I think about that story a lot when this season comes around, because there are a lot of different metaphors for change. And if we're in a moment where we're icy and we're looking to change into a butterfly, we're not going to have a lot of luck. And so I think the question that I had was like, what kind of change are we looking for this year? And I don't think that we have to have everyone speak right now, but if a few people want to be brave enough to sort of come off of the world of mute on Zoom calls, that is both refreshing as a participant, that like, oh, I can be doing everything and listening, but as a host of a Zoom call, can be like, wait, can anyone hear me? Am I speaking into a vacuum? Is there a world out there? If anyone's willing to come off of mute and be like, what is the change that you're looking for as you look forward 2 weeks to the start of the new year, to Rosh Hashanah? Yeah, Renee, go ahead.
Actually, this has been one of my least Elul working times, years. I just think with other things going on, we moved. I've been taking care of grandchildren. It's just like it hasn't happened. So I'm hoping, and especially with not having been able to be in synagogue for so much time, I think I'm looking to like reconnect. I've had spiritual experiences. I've done some Musar, I've done some Torah study, but would like to get back in the loop of prayer.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, go for it, Eden. You guys can also just come off mute and start. It's okay.
I kind of relate a lot to what Rini just said. There has been so much change that has gone on the last year and a half. I went to Shul for the first time this past Shabbat, and it was just a smile from beginning to end. I had signed up to read Torah because I was afraid that I'd never get back to Shul if I didn't sign up for something that I couldn't get out of. And it was just such a delight, and I just have to turn off my phone. It's making noises. Excuse me. Okay. And I've been going to shul for a while, almost always at TBZ. However, it stopped becoming a part of my life in a way that was really very unsettling. And I'm looking forward to reconnecting with the stuff that I loved. And I'm not sure what the newness will be because everything still feels so new. I've had a lot of physical stuff that has been going on this last year, which has all been very unexpected. And I hope to be a grandmother in a few months again. And I don't know, I'm just looking to reconnect with the stuff that meant so much to me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Enid.
Hi, this is Myron. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I pose this more of a question than an answer for myself. I have done a lot over 20 plus years of work with community groups around Greater Boston in advocacy for social justice from a variety of disadvantaged groups. We've learned so much in the last year and a half about how deep the challenge is economically to get the support that Black and Brown and other disadvantaged communities need. I've been searching for what are the ways that we can have more impact in that direction. I happened to read an article in the Times a few days ago about programs that help train basically young entrepreneurs in those communities. I don't know if that's the answer, but I guess what I'm looking for myself within this next year is to find ways to be more effective in that vein. And so let's say I'm searching. I don't have the answers yet.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it, Suzanne.
I think I want to combine what everyone said, especially Myron. My goal for this Elul, and Jordan, you've helped me a lot in your prompts. There's been so much change, and I feel the weight of the need for climate justice and racial equity and the Afghan people and the Haitian people. And I'm just trying to find some space under the weight. In fact, I'm thinking, Renee and Eden, that maybe it is returning to more in-person things, but the whole Elul is supposed to be self-reflection, and I'm having a hard time getting there because there's so much urgency, real urgency for other people. Like how do I find the hope for myself when I'm just carrying the weight of that urgency? So that's what I was hoping that I could figure out during Elul.
Yeah.
That's a really high bar.
I think the question of how do we care for ourselves and not feel like it's self-indulgent or it's, too much me, but rather that and in a comment on the book of Shemot, Ibn Ezra says that each person is like a olam katan, we're each a small world. And so how does doing the tikkun within ourselves end up spreading out to the world a little bit? Yeah, Jill, I see you.
You see me.
Yeah.
Well, I just turned 65 this year, and for me, I'm thinking about the next phase of my life and how I want to use my skills, my abilities, my wisdom to have a meaningful life. And no, I mean, I'm retired, so to speak, so I can do whatever I want, but that freedom brings its own challenges, because when you can do whatever you want, you have to decide what you want. So that's the kind of change I'd like to bring to my life, is figuring out what I like, how I'd like to spend that next phase of my life.
Right. A little clarity. Well, I was thinking of I made a little safari sheet, and I don't think we'll spend too much time. I actually, do people want to do a little bit of writing as we work tonight? Does that interest you? Maybe. Okay. I mean, there's some part of me always that's like, oh, when you can be like, when you can like be accountable to a group of people, then like actually we might do the writing and the thinking, that it's easy to sort of be like, okay, I'm coming back to that. I'm going to get to that in the morning. So at some point we may do some writing, but I'm also happy to sort of open up space for reflecting just sort of towards one another, or in small groups, or what have you. But I'm gonna share my screen and say, okay, here we are, writing the book of life. You guys can see that? Okay, sweet. So for this first source, I'll just start by reading it. So this is from Masechet Rosh Hashanah, from 16b. Amar Rabbi Kruspedai, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Kruspedai said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Shlosha Sfarim Niftachin Barosh Hashanah. There are 3 books that are opened up on Rosh Hashanah. Echad Shel Reshaim Gemorin. One of them is for the totally wicked, those who've completely crossed to the other side. Sorry. Ve'echad shel tzadikim gemorin. And there's one for the just the total tzaddiks out there, the real righteous folks. Ve'echad shel beinonim. And I love that. I love it because I feel like, yeah, that's us. That's everyone. We're all the beinonim. We're all in that sort of murky middle. And in the English, this isn't my translation, but someone called them the middling people. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's us. We are the middling people. So it says, Tzadikim gemorim, nichtavim v'nechtamin la'alter l'chaim. So for the completely righteous, they're written and sealed la'altar, like right on the spot for life. Rishaim gemorin nichtavim v'nechtamin la'alter lamita, and the totally wicked immediately for death. The beinonim taluyin va'omdim me'Rosh Hashanah va'ad Yom HaKippurim. Okay, and for the middlings, we stand and we hang in the balance from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. And like the life and death stuff, I want to just say, like, theologically too challenging to talk about people like, being written for death in this, but like, what is your life like? Is your life a life of happiness? Is your life a life of virtual death? So I think that's what I'm, when I talk about this, that's what I'm imagining here. And this idea of sort of like, okay, we're hanging in the balance and we're hoping to merit for life. And in fact, during the Yomim Noraim, we're going to add to the first bracha of the Amidah this insertion that says, Zochreinu l'chaim melech chafetz b'chaim. Remember us for life. the sovereign one who desires life. V'chodvenu b'sefer hachayim l'ma'ancha Elohim chayim. So write us in the book of life, or write us in the book of life for your sake. Not for, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in, Jewish liturgy in general, and a lot of it during the high holidays. Not for us. We, whether we deserve it or not, it's hard to say, but do it because of your compassion. But it's like it's a sense of leaning on this. So I just want to pause, because there's a lot theologically that I'm putting out there right now, and just this lands for us differently every year. One of the joys of being in a tradition that's so cyclical is we come back to these things again and again and again. And one year it's like, oh, I needed this. And the next year it's like, nope, completely done. I was at a Nigun circle we were doing for Emory students on Friday night, and the person who was leading the Nigunim is a rabbi whose name is Ariel Root Wolpe, and she gave this Torah about Nigunim, and when you're singing one for 30 minutes and the chorus and the first part comes around again, and you're like, no, actually, I don't want to sing this anymore. And I think a lot of us, Suzanne, I'm looking at you, and from the Hebrew college community, but even at CBZ, sometimes you sing something, and at some point you're like, okay, I'm all done with that particular nigun. And what she was saying is that that resistance that we feel, when we can get past it, we might go somewhere else. So curious, hearing this, reacquainting yourself with these ideas of books of life and books of death and the middle ground, and asking to be written for life. Where is it hitting you, 2 weeks out from Rosh Hashanah this year? I'm going to stop my screen share so we can see each other again.
Facing life and death this year, and I think similar to last year, as a consequence of a life meriting or not meriting, it's just kind of upside down. There's so much death,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much, we've peeled back, we've drawn the curtain, and we just see a lot of really bad people out there,
Mm-hmm.
causing a lot of deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no judgment day like that.
Mm.
So I have to go, of course, with your theology, what does it mean to really live?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rini.
What struck me as you were going over the text this time was, write us in the book of life for your sake, God. So that's what I'm thinking about. And that if in Judaism, we have the idea that we are partners in God's tikkun olam, creation of the world, of making it better, of helping to finish, bring about a creation that is a good world. So help. It's a cry. I can see it as a cry to God to even if I've made mistakes, and of course I have, I need to keep going, because I need to help. I need to fulfill the purpose of making this a better world.
Hmm. Yeah.
I was just struck with the words life and death, because there's been so much death and so much fear of death. People that never thought about death yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's very real this year. Those two words are very resonant because of all the illness and death we've seen this year. And also this decision, and I don't want to be political, but in a way, choosing a vaccine is choosing life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, So there are stark decisions that people have to make this year that aren't just theological, but they're practical.
You
I,
know,
th- I think also what, and this isn't the first time this has come to me, is the arbitrariness of who lives and who dies. It's just been so much more evident this last year and a half because a lot of good people died. A lot of good people had their vaccines and stayed secluded and did what they were, what was suggested. And they still got very sick from COVID and they died. It's, there is no rhyme or reason in my sort of theology. And it's a time to kind of struggle with the being okay with it. There's also an image, and I don't know how this really fits into anything you're saying, but you talked about building an oven in the space in between, and you built this empty space. And there's something about the idea of building an empty space that intrigues me, and I haven't gotten to where it is I can actually talk about it, but I love that image.
no, thanks. It's so Enid's talking about. I wrote a piece recently about having built a mud oven in our yard, and this is the book, how to build your earth oven, which is it shows you step by step the ways to do it. But one of the things after you sort of build your foundation is you take sand and water and you shape a dome, and that dome, around it you're going to take a mixture of mud and sand that you mix together, and you're going to pack that on top of the sand. And eventually, when the mud has dried, you pull the sand out. So when you're forming this dome, this initial dome of sand, the author calls it shaping the void. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, there's so much, there's a deep Jewish message in here about the idea of like the emptiness is like being, you're actually shaping your emptiness, and you're like, we have to have this place for tending the fire and for building up heat and nourishing ourselves by baking bread. And you have to do it by like first taking that emptiness and actually like physically building the empty space. And the Arizal, Isaac Luria, like in his conception of what creation looked like. So before, like in the early 1500s, when he's sort of coming up with his post Spanish Inquisition exile theology, he's like, you know what, like the Garden of Eden isn't working, the 7 days of creation isn't working. We need a creation myth that makes sense for the world that we're living in, a world in which there's like immense suffering that we've just witnessed. And so the Lurianic Kabbalistic story of creation is one of like an Or Ein Sof, of a light that has no end. And that's the world until the Kadosh Baruch Hu is like, actually, there actually needs to be space for something else, for the universe as we know it. And in order to make that, God assumes God's self. God contracts and creates a space, a halal, empty space. And that empty space is the space where we reside. And so if sometimes it feels like, Enid, as you're saying, lots of, seems to be a lack of justice in the way that the world works. That's not a mistake. That's actually built into to this vision of creation, is that sometimes there's a, for us to be, there had to be that emptiness and that distance from the Holy One of Blessing. So, that's where we got from building an earthen oven. But the question is like, I think a lot of us are dealing with this question of, what do we do with some emptiness that we're experiencing? days that run into the next day, to the next week, to the night, to the, Shabbat comes around and you're like, oh my God, it's Shabbos again? How did that happen? And I think that's been an experience that we've all had in this time period. And in the Gemara, there's a really nice story about rabbis sitting around and drinking wine, and all of a sudden they're like looking up and the sun's going down and they're like, oh, it's Shabbos. Like, it's so far from our conception of the preparation that it takes for Shabbat to come in, and everything has to be done. And this is in Masechet Psachim, and they say, like, what happens when you're already sitting around and Shabbat comes, and they say, like, oh, Paris Mapa Mevarech, you spread out a tablecloth and you make the blessing. And I think the question is, like, what's the act of spreading the tablecloth that we can do right now? Like, what does that look like in our lives? Okay, Shabbat's come around again. We already were like sitting here and, eating olives and, snacking and enjoying ourselves. And now Shabbat has come around again. What is the act to differentiate time during this time in which time feels oddly uniform?
But this is the Shabbat of Shabbats,
Yeah, exactly.
the
That's what
special Shabbat, right?
Yeah, right. And the I think the Chagim coming is like, oh, it's not just Shabbat. It's something bigger. And still, I think we're having those questions of, how do we differentiate? Are we doing another Zoom? Suda? Are we having like our meal with, family and friends from a distance? How are we doing this? And how do we make, if we're alone, if we're, with our pod again, whatever it looks like, and it looks different for each of us, like, what are those acts of differentiation? I would love to like hear from someone who hasn't spoken yet. Like, how are you differentiating? How are you making space right now and making a distinction in time? Yeah, Marina.
Okay, well, I think of it as an internal preparation. So, whereas I might do certain things on Shabbat, I have been thinking about, and actually, I've been doing some reading, and I've been trying to make a sacred space in my apartment, because I don't know if I will get to show or not. I will be very sad if I don't, because I spent all the holidays last year alone, and it gets old. Love to be in a congregation, and yet I've been very conscious of having, where I move things. I have this little corner of my little living room where a little altar, and that's all I can do is my internal preparation, because the rest is form. And we're really inviting, for me, the formless. So it's a preparation for a formlessness in terms of, the prayer and the connection to God, and the, real teshuva. It's all inside. So I'm less concerned about how it looks on the outside, and more about what I'm doing to prepare myself. I'm actually reading, Rabbi Claudia mentioned Rabbi Alan Wu's book, which I just got out of the library, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a great one. I like
It's a really, well, I only got to meet him once. I did a workshop with him, meditation, and I just thought how perfect this book is.
Yeah. This
I
book.
think that's really, for me, it's helping me a lot to understand the process and ways to go into it. So,
Yeah. This is the book. It's called "This Is Real" and You're
yeah,
Completely Unprepared. Or,
Yeah. what a great title.
yeah, it's a great title. Other, I think that this, Myrna, I think what was really striking me about what you said is that so much is out of our control, but how we prepare ourselves internally. I mean, that's where we are. That's Elulzman. That's like that's this month of really living into that idea of like, what does the internal preparation look like and feel like? So I want to like pause really quickly and see if we can just, even if we do it on our computers. I have a pen and paper, but I want to start with a very like simple 5-minute. It's 8:05. We'll write until 8:10, and then we can come back and some people can share what they've written. And we're going to start with write us for life, write us for ... Or actually, write me for life, write me for... So it's a little bit more personal, and we're gonna have 5 minutes of writing.
I was never able to find a bra that fits my small
Sorry.
chest. For as long as I can remember, being small.
There we go. Can you guys hear this? All right, let's wait for one more minute and then we'll be done. Okay. That Nigun from Navatahila is really like the perfect length for like a 5-minute write. I didn't realize when I wrote it, it might be, like it might be 4 minutes long, but yeah. That Nigun reminds me of leading the High Holiday services at Tufts with Noah Weinberg when he was just out of his time at Tufts, and we would lead a service together, and that would be usually how we would begin and end our davening, and it was just, I feel that's a lot of excitement for all of you that you get to daven with him and Rav Cloudy and Rav Tiferet and Reb Moshe and this whole crew of amazing leaders. So, all right, who wants to start?
I will.
Okay, great.
Okay. Write me for life. Write me for presence and trust. Trust in God's will for me. Trust in the daily unfolding of life. Write me for joy and peace, for acceptance of what I can't control, which is everything. Write me for wonder and strength, resilience and courage, to be above all kind and compassionate. Write me for wisdom and faith, right speech and action, and to feel all my emotions as good.
Thank you. Amen. I'll read mine and then someone else can go after me. Write me for life. Write me for honesty. Write me for honesty so I can be with myself comfortably. Write me to know myself, to love myself with all of my silliness and my messiness and my indecision. Master of all things, write me to be the person I'm supposed to be. Write me to love and to be loved. Write me to live, and I will live more fully. If not, does anyone else want to share or not really? I'm happy to keep this. Okay, Myron. Great.
Yeah, I can share. It's a different approach to Write Me for Life. What's on my mind very much. For me, write me a way to successfully find ways to better impact how those in need, Black and Brown communities, are helped to improve their lives. More than supporting the policy advocacy, which I've worked at for 20 years, but to find ways to work with them directly, personally, and despite COVID, and to support ways that they can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, that they can be entrepreneurial, that they can create community activities or individual entrepreneurship that really makes a difference in their communities for the long term.
Beautiful. I love it. I love that sense of write me so that I can write me to live so that I can fix what's broken in our society. Mm. All right, beautiful. So the next thing that I was going to do is I was going to share a few of, Elul prompts, these writing prompts that I've written in the past, and we can sort of discuss them together, right, as we want to. I don't know, just Myron and Myrna, hearing, I think there is something about hearing other people's prayers that is so powerful. That's like, even when we daven together as a community, like we don't know what's going on in people's minds, in their internal voice, in their tefillah. Like it's a mystery to us, and it's nice to be together. But there's something very sweet about getting to hear a little bit of like, what does this sound like in your voice? And I don't know if other people have felt this during COVID, but I've been going in the mornings to I've been tuning in the mornings to B'nai Jeshurun for Shacharit in the mornings. And this is true at, in all Zoom synagogues, but the unmuting for Kaddish Yatom, for Mourner's Kaddish, is this like cacophonous, it sounds like it can sound horrible, but there is this way in which, like, with 30 to 50 people on a call, it kind of is like one person comes in, one person goes out. It's like with each word, you can hear it in like 3 different people's voices. And there's like something very powerful about being like, oh yeah, like there is something happening for each of us here. And that's true on this call. And that's true when we like show up at TBZ or at whatever synagogue we're able to show up at, or, and there's something about being like b'tzibur, like in a community, where like sometimes finding ways of getting to hear a little bit about like, what is the thing that's happening for you? It can feel really liberating, and it can feel also like it opens up or I'll speak for myself, it opens up my own prayer life to be like, oh yeah, you could ask for this. This could be, you could use this language in your prayer life in a way that I don't know, it's like revelatory in some ways to have that access to people. So I'm thinking about like, how do we create those spaces in communities? Because even when we're together, sometimes we don't always get that inside view. All right, I'm going to share my screen.
But Jordan, that goes back to first you have to create your void.
Yeah.
Like it all just feels like, and Jill, you were talking about you're retiring, where it's all a void. It feels like all a void. And you have to create the busyness so you can manage your void. And so, Jordan, I just appreciate that. I'm a Mary Oliver fan, and she has a line which has been haunting me. Keep some room in your heart for the unimaginable. And just this whole idea of just creating space for ourselves to expand. So I don't, maybe that's my lens, Jordan, but I just feel like you keep giving us that message in different ways.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, maybe that is, say the Mary Oliver line again.
Keep some room in your heart for the unimaginable.
Wow. Yeah.
I like to believe it's the unimaginably good.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. You guys can see this again. All right. So much. I can't decide how to do this. If it's like weird for me to like read my own. Does someone want to read this? Yeah, great. Jill, I saw your hand.
What's with the sounding of the shofar during a month of introspection? Doesn't Elul have more of the silent retreat vibe? Quietly doing the work of cheshbon, hanafesh, soul accounting. I can imagine someone being pretty badly startled by the sudden blast of a ram's horn. In their efforts to
Wait,
have
so I'll pause you there. Okay, so every morning during Elul, save the last day, we're meant to hear the sound of the shofar, and I think I started off by being like, oh, it's kind of like a jarring sound, and if we're doing this like introspective, meditative, contemplative work, is this the right sound? And the rabbis are going to explain why it is we hear this sound. Great, go ahead.
In their efforts to have every moment in the Jewish calendar be mapped onto the events of the Exodus and the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, the sages assert that the shofar blast heard on the first day of Elul corresponds to Moshe's trip back up the mountain to receive the second set of tablets. As you might recall, that first set of stone tablets met an unfortunate end at the feet of a golden calf. 40 days after Moshe tossed the first draft, he returned to the mountaintop, the shofar sounding as a reminder to the people to take it easy this time. So our daily call of the shofar can be seen as the sound of second chances, of ascents, and of the potential for a return to wholeness.
Beautiful. All right, great. So just recapping what I just wrote. The month of the Rosh Chodesh Elul, when we hear that sound of the shofar, that's the sound calling Moshe to go back up. Okay, you came down, the tablets got broken, you spent 40 days dealing with the aftermath of the golden calf. The shofar sounds again, now you're heading up. I'll read for a second. Teachers of our tradition have often pointed out that a fundamental difference between the first and second sets of luchot, the tablets, is that Moshe was instructed the second time to carve the tablets himself. Pasal lecha, the verse reads, carve for yourself 2 tablets like the first ones. I've never carved stone. I once whittled poorly, but it seems like an immensely challenging job. The connection drawn between the fashioning of ourselves during Elul and the fashioning of the luchot, the tablets, might be meant to indicate that this is no simple task. It will require sweat and sacrifice and hard work. And then for those who are journaling, and of course, fountain pens and attentiveness and herbal tea. So, yeah, I guess the question that I'll ask of this group is like, is this tshuva? So this work of tshuva tshuva, the word that gets defined as repentance a lot in the Machzor, is really a word that means a return or a restoration. So if the, I don't know, there's some part of me that's like, is this hard work or is this work that just happens? And I think maybe different years, it's different for each of us. But I guess right now, does this feel like hard work to you, or is this like, what, you know how steering wheels, they like kind of turn back, what's that called? Oh, a steering wheel like rights itself. Someone know that?
I think it's power steering.
Power steering, thank you. I'm not a mechanic. Is it a matter of like power steering where as soon as we can like let go of our grip of things, the wheels get righted? Or is it like Salacha? Is it like we've got to carve some stone here and we've got to get past some really like hard parts in order to get to that like soft interior that we know is in there, but we've built a real shell around during the rest of the year. Yeah, Rini.
I don't think it just happens. Um, I wish it did, but I don't think it does. And I do, but I do think things are different every year. You know, we're in a different place every year. How we approach or do not approach Elul, I think, is different every year. But the sounding of the shofar, in fact, in my desire to get back into an Elul mode mindset, I have made a note to start tomorrow with Boker Tov, because I want to hear the sound of the shofar. To me, it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call. Get off your butt, you know, stop making excuses and do the work.
Beautiful. Yeah, Myron.
I think of the message, to me anyway, of the second set of tablets, B'tzalachot, carve it yourself, is not to take the easy route, not to do the help, the contribution, the advocacy or whatever that comes relatively easy, but to force myself to find the way to do the things that don't come easily, to go out directly to people I may know slightly, but I can work with in a community, you know, to be there on the ground, the things that just feel tough, that I'm resistant to. And the goal of Elul is to get my head convinced I really have to do it. I have to take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's risky. I think that's like a great language. There's a piece by Cherry Morega, who's a Chicana activist, radical feminist from the like 70s and 80s. You know, she's still around, but she's, you know, was famous, you know, made famous by work that she did in the 80s, really. And she wrote about soul searching and grappling with privilege. And she said it's risky work because there's discovery in it. And I love that. I love that idea that like, you know, where we learn about ourselves, there's also great risk, because that learning can, you know, can be hard, or it can be troubling. It's not the stuff that comes, like you're saying, Myron, it's not the stuff that comes most easily to us. Yeah, Jill.
I was thinking about this because I have a 94-year-old aunt who, when she was in her 60s, carved marble, and she'd never done it before. And she made these beautiful sculptures, which I could even show you. I have a couple of them in my house. But I was in Florida recently in June, and I saw her tools. And they're these, you know, she never did it again. I mean, she made 4 sculptures, and she looks at them and we look at them and went, how did you do this? You never took a class. You never did this before. And these tools are so, I mean, they're big and bulky. So it made me think about what you're doing with us tonight. And we're finding those tools for the carving. What are the tools that we need to do that carving? Some of the things you're talking about tonight are prompts, journaling. Renee is talking about, you know, prayer. So it is something to think about, that not only do you need to think about the carving, but you need to think about how you're going to go, what tools you need.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a total flattering compliment. I love that idea. You know, love that idea. I appreciate you saying that. But what an image of your aunt. Oh, show us. But you're muted, Jill. But you can show us.
I can show you a couple of her sculptures.
I would love that. I can't speak for everyone, but
Amazing. Let me see. Can you see this one?
Oh, wow.
I'll put that light on. Oh, that's my dog. Sorry. Here. This is one of them.
We point it down a little bit. There you pointed. Oh yeah. Whoa, it's kind of modern.
And I'll show you the other one is more like a sort of mother-child. Since we were talking about carving, I just wanted to show you her carving. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, we should point it up a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Wow.
She never,
Wait, Jill, you muted yourself again. Jill, I think you're muted right now.
I think it takes training for
Yeah.
most people to do that. I don't know how she do that, but well, I guess we have training. We've studied, we've
Yeah.
prayed, we have some training.
We have some training.
We have
All right, I'm recognizing that we're close to time. So I want to like share one last prompt that I'd done. I think that I have to look at the dates on them to see when it's from, but no, this isn't the page. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. No, we did that one recent. Okay, this is 5779, 2 years ago. And a few days back, L day 12, 5779. And this was right after Mary Oliver's death. So Suzanne, thanks for the perfect segue to this final thing. This is, I'm gonna skip the prompt, and this is down here is I was like, actually, sometimes when I'm thinking about these spiritual prompts and writing, I like will go to someone else's office to like look at other people's books, which can be like it's like, you know, as a kid when you went to someone else's house and you could play with their toys, and it was so fun. So I went to my teacher, Rabbi Sharon Cohen Annisfeld, to her office at Hebrew College, and she had this memoir by Mary Oliver that I don't own, but I grabbed this paragraph because she's talking about the need to write and her sense of loyalty to her own creative process. Does someone want to read this one? Enid, you want to read this one since I didn't call on you last time?
Beginning with it is 6
Yeah.
a.m. It is 6 a.m. and I am working. I am absent-minded, reckless, heedless of social obligations, etc. It is as it must be. The tire goes flat, the tooth falls out. There will be 100 meals without mustard. The poem gets written. I have wrestled with the angel and I am stained with light, and I have no shame. Neither do I have guilt. My responsibility is not to the ordinary or the timely. It does not include mustard or teeth. It does not extend to the lost button or the beans in the pot. My loyalty is to the inner vision, whenever and howsoever it may arrive. If I have a meeting with you at 3 o'clock, rejoice if I am late. Rejoice even more if I do not arrive at all.
It's just like, you know, so, you know, it's so moving to be like, God, what a calling, you know, this, you know, really can feel like, you know, the beans can wait, the toothache will wait, the tire may be flat, but when I'm writing, this is what I'm loyal to. So I thought as a final, and this I'll do that same Nava Tehillah tune one last time. The prompt that I wrote for this one was to take a piece of paper and to split it into 2 sides and to just write a list of things you want to be loyal to in the year to come, and a list of things that you can let go of, that you don't need to feel a sense of loyalty to, whether that's the mustard or that's the, you know, the meetings or what, you know, whatever it is you can sort of let go of. So I'm going to put on the tune, and we're going to write until it's done. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. The problem with YouTube is that you get random ads. Play that again.
If you live in a qualified zip code,
That's not the one I want. Okay. Okay, let me. Okay. Where did I lost you guys though? I'm gonna stop my screen share. There we are. Okay. Okay. We can share these as we want, as we want to. I'll start. I'll be loyal to my children's imagination. I'll be loyal to my need to wander aimlessly. I'll be loyal to the students sitting across from me. I'll be loyal to living joyfully in anxious times. I'll be loyal to our fragile ecosystem. I will not be loyal to the 24-hour news cycle. I will not be loyal to patriotic ideals. I will not be loyal to buying new things. And I will not be loyal to systems that cause harm. Does anyone else want to share? And if not, that's okay. You didn't sign up for a writer's workshop. Well, let me say this. I feel loyal to my love for TBZ and this special community and people who show up at night to think about how they can carve out a better version of themselves for the year to come. I'm honored to have been able to teach here and grateful to all of you for showing up and really being so present. It feels really good just to see all of you. So wishing you so much good stuff in the year to come, and before then, because we still have a lot of time before Rosh Hashanah. Don't fret. Lots of blessing in your journeys to self-discovery.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you
Okay,
so
be
much.
well.
Thank you.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Thank you so much.
Of
course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Bye, guys.